5876. Or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Thank you very so much for joining in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages, including facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, and Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. We've already got a Leroy Chuck chiming in with us, and Calvin Williams as well over on the Facebook page. Should be up and running over there, and in all the places that we want to be to have the discussion that I think is the most important, one of the most important things we could be doing today about the issues that affect us here in the Borderland, because no one else is going to talk about this stuff the way we are. People who live here in the Borderland are affected by these issues and the realities that come from them. One of the comments that I've been thinking a lot about that came in yesterday about, certain agencies, that there are certain groups out there that do not like or want to abolish, and the interaction that they actually have around here with reality. So that's kind of that interaction from yesterday has made me think a lot about the way we talk about things and why it's important to do so. Because if we're just going with ideology, if we're just going with, this is what is said at the national level and therefore it must bear true here, we're missing a whole lot of the middle ground of between ideology and implementation and the reality. So that's why we want to talk about this. So if you're locked in with us, you're more than welcome to do so. Social page is one of the better ways to comment throughout the show, because you can chime in over there, and the conversation often takes on its own life, particularly as the Skeptic Squad gets rolling on a given day and the Thunderdome of comments comes into full effect. But we'll be taking those calls a little bit later in the hour as well. On my mind today, primarily some not quite supply overall as we've gone about before, but how the labor pool and the work that can be done as it will then affect supply and affect us right here at home, how that is changing. Article over on KTSMradio.com, where we're going to have a bunch of stuff that affects us and has relevance today, that the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration launching a pilot program that will allow teenage truck drivers to cross state lines. So that's one that has been talked about a little bit. Also, presentation coming out of El Paso City Council here on a couple of things. One that we've talked about just a little bit here, about an amendment to establish the permit fee on the convenience store crime prevention ordinance. We've talked about that a little bit in the past, but it's now coming up middle of this year and the actual fees there. But more specifically, we, of course, talked a bit about what is going on with the first responders and the toll that has been taken on them kind of in general, but more specifically in recent days and weeks because of having to be out. The same thing we're hearing about with teachers. We're also hearing about with firefighters and police officers about being about 10% down at any given moment because of those that are out with quarantine and with the Omicron variant, most likely than not, of the coronavirus. So that what that is, the toll it's taking on current, staffing levels and readiness and ability to do the job as is expected by the populace is one thing. But another presentation that I got pointed out to me from City Council today, actually, about the recruitment level happening on Public Safety Operations 2022 presentation given by the El Paso Police Department. Just the slide here, I'll just read it off. The state of recruitment, a crisis for law enforcement. And the stats that are being cited there as part of this showing that 78% of agencies reported having difficulty in recruiting qualified candidates. 65% of agencies reported having too few candidates applying to be law enforcement officers, and only about 25% of agencies reporting having to reduce or eliminate certain agency services, units, or positions because of staffing difficulties, but that's the smallest stat there is. So that is some serious factors going on here, and this is going to lead into a discussion that I was able to have a little bit earlier today with Las Cruces Mayor Ken Miyagishima, talking about the experience he's having right now at the U.S. Conference of Mayors happening in Washington, D.C., as we may have wrapped up for the day by now, but otherwise going on through the rest of the week here, which is bills itself as a nonpartisan group, but really to interface with the federal, between local and federal. So have a bunch of the mayors from across the nation come together and often talk with the sitting president, of course, being the Biden administration at this point. So going into that, talking about some of these issues, including public safety and the issues around it, Leroy Chuck saying, well, I can't imagine why they're having issues getting people to become cops. Yeah, some of the other, that's the stats I was just quoting to you, some of the other things that put forth in this document, though, saying that as a result, I'll just read the first paragraph here. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, despite an increase in the raw number of law enforcement officers, a more considerable growth in U.S. population has actually led to a slow decline in the ratio of residents to police officers. As a result, officers are often responsible for serving more people, often with fewer resources. And an IACP survey found that the challenge of recruiting law enforcement officers is widespread and affects agencies of all types, sizes, and that also going on real money words here. In addition, the survey results clearly demonstrated that the challenges of recruitment have a direct impact on the way law enforcement agencies are managed by law enforcement executives. So, yeah, a lot of challenges being looked at here, a lot of population growth being cited here, but not surprised if we don't have other considerations. I mean, I tend to agree with the idea of the phrase that rather have no police officer than a bad police officer, but we're kind of looking at it from all ways and all directions here. So what they have to do to then deal with that, well, that was the source and the subject of what they're doing here. And it went on to say more that public image of law enforcement being cited, feel their jobs, majority of police officers feel their jobs have gotten more difficult since the high-profile use of force incidents that have dominated the national conversation. Emphasis actually on the El Paso Police Department's investigation and talking about it here. So a lot of supply issues and just getting people to be able to do it. So coming up in the next segment, we are going to be talking with, again, Las Cruces Mayor Ken Miyagishima out at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, getting into some of these things about public safety, about what may need to be done and seen about being done. He talks a little bit about bonds and such that will be of interest. So give that a listen here. We're coming up on the need for that first break here. So you are tuned in to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Going to get into that interview next segment. We'll be taking calls a little bit later in the hour, but if you got a burning comment, you can call in, but you might have to stay on the line for a bit. And we got a lot more comments over here. Leroy Chuck, John Brousselton, Calvin Williams, and more tuned in, chimed in. Coming up after this break, we will get into those subjects, so you are locked into Talk El Paso. Stay tuned. More about the issues affecting us here in the Borderland after this break, and a whole lot more. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got an injury accident I-10 southbound frontage road at Mesa, and it's causing a backup. Slowing on Mesa Street. Thorn could be your alternate. Loop 375 westbound at the spur. Accident there is still blocking the left lane. 54 Patriot southbound at the state line. The Texas-New Mexico state line injury accident there. And we got slowing I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorn and Yarborough between Montwood and Treywood. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Win $1,000.
No way. No way. No way.
Oh, baby. Yes way.
No way.
It's $1,000 in your hand. Listen every hour from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. weekdays for your chance to win.
$1,000 in your hand is brought to you by Approved Autos. Drive out in your new ride in less than an hour. Choose from every make and model from their super clean, hand-picked inventory and get payments as low as $159 a month. Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. If you got your license and you got a job, they smell the deal. The deals are sweeter at Approved Autos, 8498 Alameda.
This report is sponsored by Brake Masters.
Have you ever thought that the one thing connecting you between work and family is your car? Brake Masters always thinks this way. It's what we like to call being in Brake Master shape. Download coupons at brakemasters.com. Then head home safely again.
Brake Masters. We give you an honest break.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
iHeartRadio Earth knows small changes can make a big difference. Want to reduce your food waste? Embrace your freezer. From bread to meat and even cheese, most foods can be frozen and cooked later. Plus, a full freezer uses less electricity. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Do you promise to love, honor, and cherish, forsaking all others?
I do.
I do.
And now, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you roommates. Go forth.
That's not the vow you took. But if struggles with CPAP have you and your spouse sleeping in separate rooms, it might be time to look into Inspire. Inspire works inside the body with just the click of a remote. That's right, just a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation.
Talk to your doctor to see if Inspire is right for you. Review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A few things we're focusing on here today that affect us here in the Borderland, as we pretty much always do. During the week, anyway, Fridays get a little bit of froggy, but if you've been there, you've heard the jump before. So we're talking about not exactly supply issues, but considerations going into those. Convenience stores, going to be looking at some additional things going on with them starting in the middle of the year. That work now starting to get set about that whole, what's the actual phrase here? Convenience store crime prevention ordinance, like another few $100s here, but that's kind of small potatoes when you consider what else is going on with police, public safety, fire, staffing, and recruitment. 911 even is frankly a part of it. 911 services, that is. And then also, we got some election stuff that we'll be getting into a little bit more. John Brown's been talking about that Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke has raised $7.2 million and forecasting the loss here. Don't believe that you can do what you're talking about there. I'm sure people can. That's saying that once he loses his election for Texas governor, be able to use those leftover campaign funds for his own personal use. No wonder he keeps running for office. I'm not saying that there hasn't been some of that done, but I don't believe that that is technically legal here. Not a lawyer by any means, but going off of Ballotopedia over here saying campaign funds can be used to wind down the office of a federal lawmaker. But they can include moving costs, payments to campaign committee, or, quote, gifts or donations of nominal value to persons other than members of the candidate's family, and only applicable 6 months after an office holder leaves his or her position. Now, where it could get interesting is that donating the funds to a recognized charity, and if a person has, say, control of said charity, well, I'll just leave it as a ... there. Anyway, did have the opportunity a little bit earlier today to speak with Las Cruces Mayor Ken Miyagishima, who is currently out at the U.S. Conference of Mayors happening in D.C. this week, which the overall purpose there is to interface with the federal government. He'll explain that a little bit further, but really some of the issues that are coming up here. We're talking about public safety and the kind of been bubbling up to the surface a lot issues of a violent crime that has been not absolutely more, but coming, it feels like, to my notice more, and I'm probably sure to a lot of your notice more, particularly when we have things like schools going under lockdown because of the threats of what's going on, and that what feels like a spate of shootings and or murders related to drug deals. Yeah, all that stuff. Again, not saying it's an absolute increase, but it definitely seems like it's coming up more. So anecdotal at best. But so talking about some of those kind of issues and the focus coming out of here, plus other issues you've been talking about, such as infrastructure and what that might mean for the city of the Crosses and that part of the Borderland. Well, I was able to talk to him all about that and what that is going to mean and some of the discussions they're having there at the national level. And here's what we were able to talk about. Enjoy.
From the KTSM.
Joining me now, we have the mayor of Las Cruces, Ken Miyagishima. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for allowing us to call in.
because it is an interesting opportunity to speak with you, particularly where you are right now. You are out there in Washington, D.C. for the 90th winter meeting of the United States Conference of Mayors. People haven't heard about that. What made you want to go and be a part of this?
Well, I've been fortunate. I've been part of this organization for probably 13 years now, and it's really been great because we get a chance to hear a lot of government officials. There will be approximately 10 secretaries here, government secretaries of various capacities. We'll be meeting with First Lady tomorrow, and the President's coming on Friday. So it's a great agenda. We'll be talking about a lot of things, whether it's housing, cybersecurity, public safety, immigration, things of this nature, clean energy.
It's kind of both an opportunity to talk with other mayors from around the country and get best practices, as well as kind of in-person meetings and face-to-face and interfacing with federal government and programs like that.
Absolutely. For example, I just recently met with the new commissioner for CBP, Chris Mangus, which of course, that has huge implications for us there in the Borderland. The ambassador of Mexico was there as well, and various other people that help us in our jobs.
So you mentioned some of the topics going on there. What are some of the other conferences or meetings that you've been doing on issues that affect us again here in the Borderland?
Well, one of the things we were discussing is what Las Cruces is doing with our ARPA funds. And so we have approximately $25 million that was allotted to us by the federal government, and we're going to use about half of that for some of our nonprofits, and maybe another $5 million or $6 million for economic development. So we're going to look at that. We also touched a little bit about homelessness in throughout America, and one of the key points that was brought up was not only mental health for our neighbors that are homeless, but more importantly, the use of Social Security, because a lot of them, approximately 20 to 30%, actually do have Social Security benefits coming to them. Unfortunately, they can't access Social Security because it's very difficult to get a hold of, and so that's something there that they're going to start working on.
Interesting. And so referring there to ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, but there's also been a lot of discussion happening within our region and also a focus of the conference coming up here on the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And that is the previous part of the bill that we have talked about. Again, in recent weeks, there has been news conferences involving El Paso elected officials, Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, etc. So has there been much discussion and seeing about that potential money? Because the millions coming from ARPA is one thing, but the infrastructure bill has a significant more amount and possibilities coming with it.
I'm sure it has been discussed. One thing I would like to put a plug in for is to expand Interstate 10 between Las Cruces and El Paso to 6 lanes from the 4 lanes. As you may or may not be aware of, we have 6 lanes leading from Las Cruces on the way to El Paso, but it stops at the state line. And that was done in 2009, 2010. And so you're seeing more and more traffic. I mean, when we make the trek between El Paso and Las Cruces, you can see how that 2 more lanes would really help out a lot.
Oh, yeah, that's something I'm very familiar with, and definitely a little bit of if you didn't know why is it like this way, and would definitely help ease some transit and the tensions that come with it between respective cities here. So some of those funds coming in still being identified and talked about. Another issue that we have been delving into is economic development. As we are in here the new year, a lot of other possibilities or plans coming out here. So what are some of the things that you are focused on or hoping to talk more about, particularly at the conference, when it comes to economic development plans or even still recovery plans at this point, as there are still businesses being affected and things like that? What are some of the things you're talking about? What are some of the things that you're working on and implementing for Las Cruces for this year?
Well, I had a chance to kind of ask the commissioner of CBP about the border crossing cards, which not only does that benefit El Paso, but also Las Cruces, because they're allowed to go 55 miles into New Mexico, which would cover Las Cruces. So that's really a big deal because, our friends to the border, to the south, bring in a lot of goods, money, and purchase goods and services there in El Paso, Las Cruces. And so that's huge. That keeps our businesses going. And then, as I mentioned about some of the other federal monies that we have, we're one of the things we're really looking at, and I think they're also looking at El Paso, is a company called Bitwise, which basically hires people to, and they pay them quite well, approximately $20 an hour, to learn a lot of the new technology that's out there, and then they actually have jobs for them. So not only do they train them, they also have some really high-tech jobs for them to be placed in. So, there's just various areas there that we're really looking at, whether it's the infrastructure part that provides jobs, construction jobs, or more long-term jobs, as we were talking about, Bitwise and a few others.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Las Cruces Mayor Ken Miyagishima, joining us by a phone from the United States Conference of Mayors going on right now in D.C. So we're in the first couple of days of here. It goes through the weekend, or the end of the week, I should say, as well. So what are some of the other focuses or factors that you're really wanting to get into for the rest of this conference?
Well, you're going to see some committees on increase in crime. You're seeing that throughout the United States. Also regarding food security or insecurity and cybersecurity. So this, as well as clean energy, are going to be some of the things that are going to kind of round out the agenda for the conference, which ends on Friday lunchtime.
Right, yeah, going through the 21st here. So on that one particular point you just made about, food security and cybersecurity, definitely important, but the rise in crime, that is something we've talked a decent amount about, mostly anecdotally at this point, but it does seem, at least to my notice and to a lot of other casual observers that come in and call in on this show, that there has been more violent things, maybe not in total aggregate, but coming up to the surface, coming very big notice. I mean, we've had a couple of incidents on the El Paso side of things of local schools basically going into lockdown and precaution of incidents that were going on, did not end up affecting those schools, but that has happened more than once within the last 6 months. So that is something that is becoming more aware and notice of. When you think about that rise in crime and what you're wanting to focus on, what are some of your key concerns?
Well, this COVID affects a lot of things, and it affects people in various different ways. And we recognize that unfortunately, some of this, if they're not able to feed their families, sometimes they do resort to certain different types of crimes. But then you're also talking about some of the other crimes that people do. It's just a challenging time right now. Just want everyone to know that I know Mayor Leeser and Mayor Perea there in Sunland Park, myself, all the mayors in the Borderland, really, we're trying to do our best, trying to get best practices to see how we can help our local public safety agencies, our police, our fire, to help them deal with some of the situations that they're dealing with, as well as our members of the public who do need some help. I know it's a challenging time, and we hope that this will eventually come to an end, or at least significant reduction.
So, of all the things that you've been talking about, hearing about, discussing, and wanting to focus on, what would you say is, both from the Las Cruces angle and from what you're hearing from other mayors and conversations you're having with them, what is needed at the local level? I mean, particularly a federal focus here about interfacing with those programs, but even just in general, what is needed to help continue recovery from everything, all of the dips that we saw and are in many ways still encountering related to the pandemic restrictions, et cetera, to come out of it as strong as possible?
I think probably what I'm hearing the most that mayors would like to have assistance with, or how to deal with, is the increase in homelessness, as well as the rising crime in cities. Those are the two biggest ones. Of course, inflation is huge, and that comes with it the food security or insecurity with that. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we're always trying to keep our infrastructure safe as far as IT. There's people who try to break into the city's IT networks and cause havoc that way. So there's just a whole different there's just a litany list of things that we have to deal with.
If you want to send a concrete message about, there's a lot to go into, as you've just built into, but of the people of the Borderland and particularly of Las Cruces, of what you're hoping to implement coming out of this, or that they might see being worked on, in the coming weeks and months.
One of the things was to hopefully get Social Security to be a little bit more amenable and open to the public. Not only just our citizens who need access to them, but also approximately 20 to 30% of the homeless people are that way because they can't access Social Security. Some of them actually do have very legitimate claims that they need, and if they can't have money, they're forced, unfortunately, to live on the streets, and that's just not right. So we're hoping that to come out of it. Also to, as I mentioned, see what best practices we have to help at least hold the line on crime, if perhaps reduce it. But again, a lot of it has to deal with people that are just experiencing so many different traumas that unfortunately they resort to different avenues, and one of them is just committing crime.
Certainly an ongoing concern and something that we have been concerned about in our own right with the continuing impact of this. Again, a lot of federal agencies that you're mentioning that were put on this, a lot of focus on this agenda, particularly when it comes to crime and things like that, is interfacing with the Justice Department and what programs may or may not be available there. Any particular aspects that you have been interested in or might want to see able to be implemented, particularly within the communities around here coming out of this?
Gosh, that's a new one. We don't have that on our agenda. That's something there that I mean, a lot of times it's really more focused on more local. I mean, as far as for example, I don't think you all have the same challenge that we have as far as bond is concerned. We're seeing a lot of people when they're arrested, they're being released on bond with little or no bond there in New Mexico. Not sure how that works there in Texas, but that's really more of a local an issue that needs to be taken up from the New Mexico legislature, which I hope that they're going to be working on during this session right now. But unless you can tell me something specifically, I'm not aware of any agenda item about criminal justice, other than just trying to help the homelessness from having them arrested and putting them in jail.
Okay, I mean, like there was I believe it's coming up here on the agenda a little bit later today, actually, the Justice Department initiatives focused on cities, a briefing for mayors. So I think that would be an interesting one to look at here, focusing on the mayor of Chicago, Kansas City, and others, including the Associate Attorney General for the Department of Justice. So those are just some of the, I think, interesting concepts being discussed here that would have an impact on some of these issues we're discussing.
Probably. As I mentioned, Andrew, unfortunately, there's like 3 or 4
absolutely
committees going on at the same time, and you just kind of pick and choose which one you think would apply to your city as well as the borderland, and so that's where I just kind of focus on homelessness and immigration. And I know that we're going to be having another committee on crime in the cities, but I haven't gotten to that one yet. Maybe that's tomorrow.
Absolutely. So again, the conference underway right now, going to be happening through the end of this week. And again, our guest right now has been Las Cruces Mayor Ken Miyagishima, talking about the issues he's focused on and some of the things we'll be seeing coming up here in this year within the borderland and the city of Las Cruces. So Mayor Miyagishima, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us from the conference and some of the things going on there and what the impact we might see here in the borderland here today.
Absolutely, Andrew. Thank you again for allowing us to kind of share some of the information that we're receiving here in Washington, and miss everyone back home in the borderland, as well as the great weather down there.
All right, again, thank you to Mayor Miyagishima. That's taking us through the bottom of the hour here. So we're going to take that break right now because we need to, but if you're wanting to call in and comment on the show, we'll take those calls here in a little bit. But otherwise, we're going back to this break talking more about some of these public safety implications and a little bit more maybe about campaign finance here, since that keeps coming up. But all of that coming up here. So you're locked into Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Back after this break. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Justin Creed, your CBS 4 News Update. Developing overnight, El Paso police say a man was taken to the hospital after he walked into the Mission Valley Command Center on his own in East El Paso with gunshot wounds. This is all we know so far, and waiting to learn more. You can count on CBS 4 on your side to keep you updated both on air and online at CBS4Local.com. Well, wait times at the El Paso mega COVID-19 testing sites are finally improving. Just 2 weeks ago, sold out at-home COVID-19 tests in stores and extremely long wait times at mega testing sites. Now, city officials say although testing is still in high demand, wait times have improved from about 6 hours down to 2 hours. After losing 20% of their staff 2 weeks ago due to COVID-19, the city sites are now fully staffed but continue to handle more than 50% of the city's testing. In addition to city testing sites, the White House is making it easier for everyone to get tested with the launch of the covidtest.gov. Each household can order up to 4 free COVID-19 tests. With your CBS 4 News update, I'm Justin Cree.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
After a few mild days, bigger changes are headed our way starting tonight as colder air moves into the area. Tonight, our sky will go mostly cloudy with breezy conditions with a 20% chance for a few showers overnight. Coming up tonight, I'm tracking our next cold front along with the chance for some wintry precipitation. Plus, if this winter-like pattern sticks around for the upcoming weekend. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. If New Year calls for more hiring, check out Indeed, the all-in-one hiring platform that makes it easy to attract, screen, and interview candidates all in one place. Sponsor your first job post today after visiting Indeed.com/credit.
Happy New Year, El Paso. This is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Southern Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas, for helping us have a record-breaking year. As a gesture of gratitude, we're offering 0 down, 0 APR for 72 months, no payments for 90 days, and exceptional trade-in offers for any trade.
Keep your cash and save thousands with record-breaking price cuts during the Start Something New sales event going on now at Southern Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. 2022 Ram trucks, huge selection, huge savings. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokees, Dodge Charger, and Durango SUVs. Looking to save thousands on your next car, truck, or SUV? The all-new Southern Park Dodge Certified Pre-Owned Super Center has a great selection with more arriving daily. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Southern Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Or buying a car is still fun at I-10 at Southern Park Drive or online at southernparkdodge.com. East Thomas into Esquina, El Paso strong. Increased factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR is $13.89 per thousand finance. All select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Talk El Paso, airing weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, focused on local businesses, local politics, local impacts of the day's news. Brought to you in part by Thrive 915 Food Fest. Join the conversation Monday through Friday at 4, and let's talk El Paso.
With low-cost Medicare prescription copays at Walgreens, you won't have a Medicare in the world. Plus, easy prescription delivery options for even less to Medicare about. Start filling your Medicare prescriptions with Walgreens and see how much you could save today. This report is sponsored by Walgreens.
Not on my watch, our military service members say, as they volunteer to serve. As they move out, stand firm, and take fire. So not on our watch, we say, to the severely ill or injured veterans who can't get the care they deserve to live full and independent lives, even when there's no government funding or a nursing home seems like the only option. We won't leave one warrior behind. Not on our watch. Join us at findwwp.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A bunch of stuff we're talking about here today, including what's going on with labor force, not quite the right term here, but in general, even just recruitment and the ability to do work of a couple of kind of key sectors we're looking at, including trade, transportation, and even public safety. That coming out of directly here in the Borderland, some national currents being seen locally, according to the El Paso Police Department and more. But question has come up about campaign finance and such here. So actually of interest here, came across my feed here, but hadn't pegged it for bringing up today. But case before the Supreme Court right now, actually involving Texas Senator Ted Cruz, who is challenging a federal law that caps repayments of loans from candidates to their campaigns from post-election contributions. Currently capped at $250,000. Currently, if you're doing it from post-election funds, that's what it's capped to. And the Cruz campaign, he had loaned himself $260,000 specifically for the purpose of challenging this law. And those arguments happening before the Supreme Court here just recently today, as a matter of fact, if I'm reading my dates right. So that's more impacts and movement on that. So we did also have, again, Las Cruces Mayor Ken Miyagishima interviewing him while he is out at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. So thank you again to him for doing that. Leroy Chuck asking one of the questions that came up out of it. Did he just blame COVID for the crime? Come on, man. Using a very, of course, common phrase there. I think, to be more specific, I think he was talking about petty crime. I mean, the way he phrased it was those feeding their families. Not saying that that's a good excuse, but the things he said further about violent crime, needing to combat that, and then the bond systems differences between Texas and New Mexico, him hoping to kind of strengthen that, and a lot of people being put out on no bond. I know we've had some conversation about what happens mostly on the Texas side of things and the releases there, so interesting conversations coming out of that for sure. Michael Petta is saying that this is too exciting for him off to the gym. If you got risks make sense for you, good luck with it. John Brownson even saying have a good workout. So, hey, be able to make the decisions for yourself and weigh the risks and reward for yourself. That's pretty much what I'm in favor of as well. So, hope you have a good workout as well. So, mentioned also as we were starting up this show a little bit about elections because, of course, they are impending, even with talking about campaign finance and all of that kind of fun stuff. There is an impending challenge that is getting a little bit clearer, including some factors that are, well, we'll just describe it here. El Paso Link with a really good rundown of what we talked about last week, coming in late last week, about what was going on with the now race between two, I guess, technically incumbents. Well, one incumbent and one de-districted incumbent, might be the way to put it here, between Claudio Ordaz Perez and Art Fierro for state representatives. Now, it's an interesting situation, of course, that we both have some that are running unchallenged out of our local state delegation to the state house, but in this situation, we're looking at two essentially being a district into each other, and one of the districts being moved out of town. That is leading Ordaz Perez to decide to, instead of challenging, which would have been technically the one where her previous residence had been in District 77, which is currently held by a Democratic state rep, Lina Ortega, instead of choosing to move her legal residence to one that is within Art Fierro's District 79. Now, one of the more interesting wrinkles that come out of this is that I was personally surprised to a small extent that, given that there weren't a lot of movement against incumbents in this case, particularly given the events of the summer when we did see the state level Democrats decamp to DC in order to do that kind of end run that ultimately failed against Texas voting laws. You might remember that. We talked about it just a little bit on this program, but it didn't seem like there was many repercussions, at the very least not electorally, except for this one. It was kind of long expected that there was going to be some impact to El Paso's delegation, given the fact that, well, our population did not grow in proportion to the rest of Texas. So I mean, it wasn't totally stagnant, even though it gets talked a lot about being stagnant. There was some growth, particularly out to the eastern parts of the county, that it wasn't anywhere near keeping up a pace with the explosive growth as being described in central Texas. But a note that came out here that was being said at the time, very interesting, is that someone who, a commentator apparently, who was speaking with El Paso Inc., said that essentially if Ordaz Perez wasn't going to return to Texas, that she may face repercussions. And this may have been the end result of it. Because if she didn't come back, she came back with more or less the rest of the party after it seemed like that whole effort to essentially lobby at the federal level failed, saying that, well, this may have been what happened as a result of that. So that's a very interesting wrinkle to this whole situation, and this is why I love politics. Getting into it and going into it, and this race coming up, Fierro saying that he's going to keep campaigning, even though his personal legal challenges to stop this from happening have been turned down. So we're looking at a very interesting campaign between two Democrats in this for a race for that representative for the state house. So we're going to do for that next break right now, but that's just a little bit on what's going on with politics in town. But, we're going to go ahead and open up those phone lines as we do, starting to do regularly at this point in the show here, if you're still getting used to the new format as we are. So that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We're back with this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
traffic all day. News Radio 690.
We got two crashes on Yarborough Drive. One is south of Montwood at Allway. You could take Pelicano as an alternate. The other injury accident is at Edgemere in Yarborough. You could take Pebble Hills as an alternate. I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne is extra stop and go heavy. And Zaragoza between Joe Battle and Tierra Este. Both directions, slow traffic. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Brake Masters.
Have you ever thought that the one thing connecting you between work and family is your car? Brake Masters always thinks this way. It's what we like to call being in Brake Master shape. Download coupons at brakemasters.com. Then head home safely again.
Brake Masters. We give you an honest break.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi just made up to $30 million in stock trading on big tech companies like Google. And these are the very same companies she oversees in Congress. After decades in public service, Pelosi has a net worth of up to $250 million. Now, Grant Stinchfield is on Newsmax exposing Pelosi and her hypocrisy. Watch Stinchfield tonight. You'll be shocked by what you find out and how much Congress is making on your dime. Tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern to Stinchfield on Newsmax, America's fastest-growing cable news channel. America trusts Newsmax for the real news you can't find anywhere else. Get Newsmax on every major cable system. If your cable operator doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want it. Or watch Newsmax free on your smart TV, like Samsung, Vizio, or LG. And streaming on Pluto, Zumo, Roku, and more. Millions of Americans just like you are turning off the old media for Newsmax. Watch Stinchfield tonight and find out why.
When you need your home or business clean, leave it to the big dogs. Bulldogs Professional Cleaning won't quit until your space is sparkling clean. We do it all. Carpet cleaning, pet treatment, deep cleaning, and more. We provide superior service using eco-friendly chemicals. Trash and appliance pickup is available with a disposal fee. Your prices can't be beat. See why homes, offices, and restaurants have trusted Bulldogs Professional Cleaning for 7 years. Schedule your cleaning today. Call Bulldogs Professional Cleaning at 915-694-4643.
The Mlk Tapes is your next true crime podcast obsession. On April 4th, 1968, a lone gunman assassinated Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Memphis, Tennessee. At least, that's the official story. The Mlk Tapes podcast explores recordings of eyewitness testimonies to reveal the real story of the plot to kill Dr. King.
James Earl Ray was a pawn for the official story.
Listen to the Mlk Tapes wherever you get your podcasts.
No family should lose someone they love to COVID because vaccines prevent more than 9 out of 10 COVID deaths. We can do this. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM, and your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact with the show. We do have that phone line open now. The number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And I just love it when people just kind of miss the point consistently, too. I gotta love the comments and has it go on over here. Louis Pinato, Epifanio, Yanni, unhappy with me for not doing a drag-out beatdown with the mayor of Las Cruces. I've only said this a couple of times, almost every time we have these interviews on the show, but the way we do it is that we want to know what the person we're interviewing is talking about, what their perspective is, and then we'll break it down. Seriously, this is not a new concept we've done on the show here, and the way we've consistently done it, so, hey, if you're just missing the point there, maybe work on your aim. Anyway, calls on the line, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Good question in and point from Barbara Carrasco. Reporter from Univision asked Biden a question, but didn't bother to ask why Biden hasn't visited our southern border. No, he was concerned if he's been to South America. I believe there's an open invite from a lot of people, elected and otherwise, in our region for the administration to come and visit here and see the thing. So fully in favor of that happening, but not going to hold my breath in the meantime. So again, number to call right now if you want to chime in that way, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. One of your callers the other day called to complain about me
dumping on his messiah, Trump, and that I never, talk up what Biden can't come up with any accomplishments for President Biden. So here's a short list of his accomplishments. President Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID relief deal to deal with a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. He didn't play it down, a $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill, something Trump promised to do, but he couldn't get it done in the 4 years he was there. Getting 72% of American adults fully vaccinated. And that's in spite of all the opposition from the COVIDians. Go Darwin. Getting 40 federal judges appointed and confirmed. And 80% of those new judges are women, and 53% of them are people of color. 6 million jobs created. He brought unemployment rate down to 4.2% from 6.3% where he found it when he inherited Trump's disaster. Jobless claims fell to their lowest level since 1969. Now, when Trump took office, the U.S. employment was 145 million people. When he left office, it was 143 million people, approximately down 3 million people since Trump's inauguration. So what happened to all those jobs he said he created and brought back from abroad? He cut child poverty, was cut in half with the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. Schools reopened. When Biden took office, only 46% of the schools were open. Today, 99% of the schools are open. And one other thing, what one doesn't do is almost as important as what one does. And here are some of the things President Biden hasn't done. Zero golfing. Trump even golfed through the pandemic and went golfing for 25% of his presidency. Zero insane tweets. Zero international embarrassments. Zero racist dog whistles. Zero insurrections. Trump was not sent by God. He was not the chosen one, and he's a draft-dodging coward with no honor. Thank you very much.
Sure thing there, even if we got a little bit off topic there at the end here. Frankly, I have an issue with anyone that treats any politician as if they are an appointed messiah or anything besides that is who was literally elected to work for us. So anyone who comes to that standpoint of my own issue with, including talking about the current administration for that matter, because also let's be clear, what exactly gonna say that was an accomplishment of this current administration vaccination levels, particularly given that their landmark effort for it was just trounced by a vote in the Supreme Court saying that no, the method that you are trying to enforce in order to do it, not going to be allowed. So I'm not saying that they did anything to it so much as maybe they did get in the way of it, except of course for this, and we'll see what the impact is of that going forward. But same thing was actually said, during the first part of the Trump administration of currents coming into it, and I think that there has been a pretty advantageous inheritance of situations coming out of this. But just to say that there isn't any politics being played with this pandemic, I think is missing a larger point as well. The CDC has lost a lot more credibility in my mind by their continual insistence on things such as not promoting the actual effective standard of masks, saying that any mask is better than none, but not saying that you actually should do further. It's been discussed, but hasn't actually been implemented yet. And the removal of the full quarantine period down to 5 days. There's pretty transparently why that happened, and it's in order to prop up essentially what is going on with the rest of the economy as much as can be done from that standpoint, I guess. It's not the most effective thing in my mind here. So, hey, if you like what a guy's doing, that's fine. But frankly, from a very simple standpoint, a lot of people out there shouting, let's go Brandon, and kind of giggling to themselves. There's a lot more, frankly, people who I know who consider themselves liberals who would say, don't say that, just say the actual phrase you have in mind, and I'll probably agree with you. It's a weird time to be alive and dealing with, and Calvin Williams saying that a lot of this is a little bit of perspective there. Calvin Williams saying 0 international embarrassments with a few extra emojis added there. Matter of perspective. Yeah, absolutely. All right. We'll get to more of this. We got to take that break for the top of the hour right now. So we do have those phone lines open if you're wanting to call in. That number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. I'm sure we'll get more into this, but we'll talk more about what's going on here at the Borderland. Coming out of this break with more Talk El Paso. After the top of the hour news, here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
We got two crashes on Yarborough Drive. One is south of Montwood at Allway. You could take Pelicano as an alternate. The other injury accident is at Edgemere and Yarborough. You could take Pebble Hills as an alternate. I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne is extra stop and go heavy. And Zaragoza between Joe Battle and Tierra Este. Both directions, slow traffic. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Mass Mutual knows retirement can be an uncomfortable conversation. Who's the big boy? You are. Who's going to take care of us when we retire?
It's going to be you.
You're going to make sure we don't end up in a retirement home.
And if we do, it's a really nice one.
With tango lessons.
And bocce ball.
And a community pool. Oh. Talk to us about retirement today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. Mass Mutual. Live Mutual.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzz driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You could kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says, "I'm a catch," more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that. Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the Untitled Chapter.
News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. President Biden says he and Russian President Vladimir Putin have had frank discussions and is confident imposing sanctions if Russia invades Ukraine would be effective. During a press conference at the White House, Biden said Russia will face consequences if they press the issue.
The idea that NATO is not going to be united, I don't buy. I've spoken to every major NATO leader. We've had the NATO-Russian summit. And so I think what you're going to see is that Russia will be held accountable.
While he admits Russia has overwhelming superiority over Ukraine, he stated that they'll pay a price if they invade. The president's clarifying the White House's definition of fully vaccinated. During the press conference, a reporter asked Biden whether the White House avoided changing the definition to include a third booster shot to inflate the number of full vaccinated Americans in statistics. The president denied the claim and took the opportunity to remind Americans to get their initial doses and then a booster. The Department of Justice is sending 4 pages of disputed Trump documents to the committee investigating the January 6th attack on the Capitol. The DOJ says the pages are not linked to documents that are being blocked by a temporary court injunction. The committee wants 700 pages of Trump White House documents related to the Capitol attack. The surge in illegal immigration at the southern border goes on. Lisa Taylor has more.
There were nearly 179,000 encounters
figures in December. That's up about 6,000 month over month, according to data that the Biden administration provided to a federal court. It's the latest sign that the crisis at the border is likely to continue into this year. The report shows only a small percentage of those caught were released into the country with orders to report. I'm Lisa Taylor.
At the closing bell, the Dow Jones lost 340 points to 35,029. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Rap artist Cardi B is going to be paying for the funerals of the 17 victims of the Bronx fire.
The Bronx native and Grammy Award winner joins the Mayor's Fund in covering the costs, including the costs of funerals held in West Africa. Cardi B said that when she heard about the fire that happened earlier this month, she knew she had to do something. 8 children were also killed in the blaze, which fire officials say started due to a space heater. Lisa G., New York.
The Cleveland Clinic is launching a new landmark study to look at why millions of people worldwide suffer from diseases of the brain. Clinic officials announced the initiative, saying it will be the largest clinical study ever conducted on brain diseases. Doctors say they hope to understand the early biofactors before symptoms develop to help prevent and cure neurological disorders. Fashion legend Andre Leon Talley has died after battling an unknown illness. Noam Laden takes a look back at his life.
Talley's personality was bigger than life. So were the clothes that he wore.
Yes, it is as glamorous and as exciting as it appears, but the underbelly of the world of fashion is as cruel as any other industry.
In 1998, Talley became Vogue's first African-American male creative director, working closely with the magazine's editor-in-chief, Anna Wintour. In 2020, he released a memoir detailing his rise from being a kid in North Carolina to covering the fashion runways of Europe. The 73-year-old Talley died in a New York hospital on Tuesday. No word on his cause of death.
The chance to own a rare black diamond from outer space is almost here. It's called the Enigma and weighs in at a whopping 555 carats. It's already set 2 world records and will mark a third when it becomes the largest diamond to ever appear at auction. The jewel is currently on an exhibit tour in Dubai and will then head to Los Angeles before being sold in London. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. WIN. That's WIN. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Brakemasters.
Have you ever thought that the one thing connecting you between work and family is your car? Brakemasters always thinks this way. It's what we like to call being in Brakemaster shape. Download coupons at Brakemasters.com. Then head home safely again.
Brakemasters. We give you an honest break.
When El Paso Children's Hospital first opened its doors in 2012, they forever changed pediatric healthcare in the region. More families stay in El Paso for specialty treatment instead of leaving town. More children have access to pediatric specialists. 7 pediatric specialty clinics help achieve the best possible outcomes. And there's so much more to come. El Paso Children's Hospital, celebrating 10 years of pediatric specialty care in the region. 10 years of wonder.
Think you can handle another iHeartRadio True Crime Week? With thousands of true crime podcasts to choose from, finding your next case to binge can be a little intimidating. Lucky for you, our investigators are on the scene with an entire lineup of podcasts to get you started. From stone cold killers to cold cases waiting to be cracked, including the new iHeart podcast, The Mlk Tapes.
He never confessed.
Open the free iHeart app and search True Crime to start your next podcast obsession. iHeartRadio. Discover music, radio, and podcasts you'll love.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm going to let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
News Radio 690, KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. If you're on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or on our social pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. Either of those names, Talk El Paso, Andrew J. Polk, most of those places, you're going to find us and be able to tune in, chime in, and participate in the conversation. We have that phone line open as well right now, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of comments going on right now, particularly in reference to our recent caller there. A.W. Hale, Calvin Williams, Lou Pinato, James Radcliffe, Leroy Chuck, Barbara Carrasco, Epifanio, and a whole lot more. Calvin Williams asking, did I say it depends on your perspective? Any perspective outside of the basement that the previous caller lives in there. But actually a very, very relevant point that Leroy Chuck brought up, particularly about the sticking point, I think, here is the idea of zero international embarrassments during this current term of office. Leroy Chuck saying, Afghanistan? If I have to say anything about Afghanistan, yeah, that slight little thing debacle in the way it was done, because, I almost don't care that what would happen in the previous administration. You're going to say that there was a bad plan coming out of the previous administration and you just went along with it, saying, well, nothing we can do. That's almost worse than saying that, well, we thought it would work. Because the impotence that comes, it's a whole discussion to be had. But let's get to those calls on the line here before I go off on a soapbox. We do have right now Andrew on the west side here with us. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, you discussed earlier with the mayor of Las Cruces, basically crime and inflation, correct?
Yes, that was definitely something we got into, and how it affects Las Cruces specifically.
Okay. Well, something that affects the border area tremendously is, number one, you don't want to defund the police, and doing that, when you defund the police, don't be surprised if crime goes up. Number two, don't allow illegal immigrants to come into the United States without any consequences. And you need to enforce the laws that are on the books and punish criminals.
Yes, in general, I'll agree with you on those particular points, yeah.
Yes, and then when you shut down the oil production of the United States, that's going to create a lot of inflation. You talk about the supply chain. When you don't have gas or diesel to fuel these trucks, everything's going to slow down. Now, I must respond to that Raul character concerning Trump. 220 judges were appointed and confirmed under Article 3 of the Constitution. 200 is the average, Andrew. 200 is the average. Not to mention 3 justices to the Supreme Court. Most presidents in their 8-year terms, or rather their 2 terms, only get 2 appointed to the court and confirmed. Trump made us energy independent, and he did facilitate the vaccine rollout. So that's some accomplishment there, Raul. So basically, you guys have a good afternoon and a good evening. Take care, Andrew.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the points and the call there. Again, if you wanted to call in during the show, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We'll get to some more of the calls on the line here. We're squeezing what we can. We will be taking those calls throughout the rest of the show here, so no worries. Right now, we do have Jacob on the west side here with us. Jacob, thanks for joining us.
Hi. I just wanted to add to the previous caller's comment in regards to the job losses under Trump. I mean, I think we can all benefit from if we practice more intellectual honesty, because I think we all understand that those jobs were lost because of a pandemic. And a lot of those, the states didn't want to open up the schools and things. And I would say that it had a lot to do with who was president at the time. So they wanted to make Trump look bad. And so I think that affected the jobs numbers, school and school openings. I just wanted to make that point.
No, I think that's a fair point to make. And something else that comes to mind for me, I'm glad you brought that up there, is that, sure, we are looking at low unemployment, but as we talked about yesterday on this program, we're talking about when it comes to actual employment numbers, that is only representative of those that are actually in the workforce. And there has been probably a significant amount. The amounts vary that I have seen, but it's definitely more than zero of people who have dropped out of the workforce entirely, saying that they are just no longer seeking employment and therefore not considered as part of that unemployment number. So given the fact that there are still, at the very least here in the borderland, looking at our unemployment rates similar-ish to what we're looking at nationally, there are still tons of positions that are going unfilled. So it's not exactly that, well, everyone who wants a job has one, is that there are people who don't even want a job at this point. So I think that's a very important factor to consider, that, yes, the jobless reports are an important factor, but you got to realize what goes into them as well. So thank you for that point in the call. Do appreciate it. All right, there we go. Okay, I think we can squeeze in one more coming up here right now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Again, taking the calls throughout the rest of the hour, just talking about for this segment here. We do have Barbara on the west side here with us. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. I was listening to the president's speech today, and I just sat there just nodding my head the whole way through it. He asked a lot of rhetorical questions, but I want to get to a few points there. Mm-hmm. They asked him about Russia and Ukraine, and he felt that Russia would invade Ukraine. And he said, well, at some point in time, I believe that he will, but it'll be like a small incursion. It's like, okay, you can go in there, but make it small, just like he told Russia, you can go ahead and hack our companies, but only these 16 industries, you are off limits. So he's basically giving them permission, you know, I mean, to say that and then another thing he said is that he feels that in the long run, he will go ahead and invade and win. It's like, my Lord, the things he said. And then he kept asking a rhetorical question, well, what do Republicans stand for? Just exactly what is it that they stand for? And I'm thinking, can somebody stand up and tell him? I mean, we're for lower taxes, we're for energy independence, we're for low inflation, we're for safe borders, we're for law enforcement. I mean, you can go on and on and on. And then, well, what have they done? Well, President Trump did USMCA, an agreement with Japan, an agreement with South Korea. I mean, we have great trade deals that the president did, and President Trump did. And so he's just, and then of course, as expected, I was just sitting there waiting. Okay, he's doing pretty good. He's not angry yet. Maybe he'll get through this without yelling and getting angry. Well, I was wrong, because he did get angry. They asked him a question as why he believed that people thought that his ratings were so low and he was so disappointing in office. And he said he did not believe in the polls. Okay, so what is it you're going to do to change everything? Well, I'm going to get out there and talk to people and tell them exactly what we are doing. I mean, he was just way out there. But what was amazing to me is they asked him about Afghanistan, and he said he did not regret anything that he did on Afghanistan. He didn't even mention the Americans that are still suffering in Afghanistan, or those that helped us, the interpreters and other individuals, Afghanistan, that helped America. Had absolutely no feeling for them. And then just to comment on Raul's comments, Raul needs to understand that Biden has not created jobs. People are going back to the jobs that they lost because of COVID. And then he's so proud that President Trump, Biden has put, 80% of the judges are women and 52% are of color. Well, look at the great vice president we have, a person of color, and she's a female. And she's lower in the tanks than anybody ever. She and Biden, their poll ratings are just zero, in my opinion. I mean, for him to boast that that's such a great thing when you put color and gender above merit and knowledge and history, all I point to is Kamala. Look what she's done for us. And then the vaccine. Well, it was warp speed. That's why we had so much vaccine available when Biden went in. He has no pre-planning. That's the difference between a businessman who's run a business and has projections and knows how to plan, to a president who's been in the government for 50 years and all he's learned to do is spend our tax dollars. It doesn't matter if there's any forethought in it or what the repercussions will be in the future. It's just he's got our money. He's going to spend it. President Trump went in there with a totally different view. And everybody comes down on Trump because, he's, I guess, opportunist. I'm wondering how many Democratic presidents, Raul, have gone into office, have already made their money, and have come out of office with less than what they went in. Every Democrat I know of has gone in with little or no money. Look at the Clintons. Look what they came out with. Nothing but what have they made. Look at Obama. Look where they are, multimillionaires. Look at Pelosi. Golly, even the senators buying stock and saying that they should be able to buy stocks because that's what capitalism is about. Oh, just now that she's made $100 million is capitalism. Oh, and Raul, how about Fauci? He's made what, $10 million in 2020 when we were all here suffering, people losing their jobs, people on welfare, people getting checks from the government. I mean, shameful. And the list goes on. Oh, and let's not forget, we pick people like President Biden who don't have skills. How about Buttigieg? Hey, he's the first transportation secretary, single-handedly saved Christmas. What an accomplishment. That's what you get when you pick people who don't know what they're doing to help run our country. Look at what's happening with the trains in Los Angeles. I mean, that could go on and on.
I mean, I think you bring up some very reasonable points there, absolutely, about the situations. I'm not saying that diversity is a bad thing, but if we're doing it for its own sake and not saying that there needs to be, qualifications for the job, just picking anyone off the street that meets a set of, ideals that you have about who should be holding that seat, that starts defeating the purpose in my mind here. So if you're excited about that, great. I'm happy for you. But if you want to make sure that we're having people qualified in there, that's, I guess, my primary concern. I'll agree with you on you there. And this is why I got to say, I'm not surprised by anything Biden said during, maybe a little bit about getting mad, during his essentially a stump speech, because he was going to say what he's going to say there. And I think that I'm not exactly going to call it a wag the dog situation, but an active conflict. Well, let's just say the playbook has already been written when it comes to Ukraine, but we'll save that for another day because that's a little bit out of our area. But here's what it comes down to, and why we'll go about the things we do here on this program is because, there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes out nationally and a whole bunch of talking points here. But when we start bringing it down to our local level, particularly about things such as the police or other forms of law enforcement or agencies, what it actually means here on the ground often is very different than the way it gets talked about from the 30,000-foot kind of level that DC often ends up being discussing about. So that's why we'll keep talking about the things we are. But otherwise, thank you very much for bringing up what you did there. I mean, there's a lot to get into, and we'll keep doing here. So thank you for the points and call, Barbara. Do appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right. We are overdue for that break right now. We got a bit into it there, but coming back out of the break, we're going to get to more of these calls on the line here. So if you want to call in, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got a crash that's slowing traffic. West Paisano on-ramp to the I-10 East Viscount Boulevard at Acer, just north of Gateway. You've got an accident there that's causing traffic to slow. McRae is an alternate that you could use to avoid that crash. 2 accidents on Yarborough, one south of Montwood at Alway, the other at Edgemere. Both crashes causing some slowing right now. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Saving money feels pretty good. So lower your rates, not your expectations. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
An unmitigated disaster at our southern border, and you will pay the full price. This is a full-blown crisis. It is a humanitarian crisis. It is a national security crisis. It is a health and safety for you and your family crisis.
Joe Biden's weak border policies have made America and Texas less safe. Take it from Brandon Judd, president of the National Border Patrol Council.
Joe Biden refuses to secure our southern border. He's crippled law enforcement and emboldened dangerous drug cartels, criminals, and human traffickers. That's why the National Border Patrol Council is proud to endorse Governor Greg Abbott for re-election. He deployed new resources to assist law enforcement, and he's cracked down on criminal activity. No other governor has done more to secure our border than Greg Abbott.
Vote on March 1st. Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Conquer your New Year's resolution to be more productive with the Before Breakfast podcast. In each bite-sized daily episode, time management and productivity expert Laura Vanderkam teaches you how to make the most of your time, both at work and at home. These are the practical suggestions you need to get more done with your day.
Just as lifting weights keeps our bodies strong as we age, learning new skills is the mental equivalent of pumping iron.
Listen to Before Breakfast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you promise to love, honor, and cherish, forsaking all others?
I do.
I do.
And now, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you roommates. Go forth.
That's not the vow you took. But if struggles with CPAP have you and your spouse sleeping in separate rooms, it might be time to look into Inspire. Inspire works inside the body with just the click of a remote. That's right, just a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation.
Talk to your doctor to see if Inspire is right for you. Review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to participate in the program here, including the phone lines full up at the moment, but if you want to try your luck, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Barbara clarifying that she was on rowing machine during that speech she was listening to, so got a great workout out of it. Theme going on here a little bit today, working out while listening to, all this kind of stuff going on. Hey, if this fuels your workout, more power to you. But again, 915-544-5876 is the number to call if you want to. Taking those comments, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Also got Calvin Williams, James Radcliffe, Leroy, Chuck, A.W. Hale, Louis Pinato, and more tuned in, chiming in. You're more than welcome to throughout the show here, going 4 to 6 p.m. as we do. Doma comments definitely going apace already, so if you want to jump in over there, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the main one, but we'll get to some more of those calls here in just a second. Some of the major topics we are discussing today, what's going on with certain specific aspects of supply and labor workforces, public safety specifically, with El Paso Police Department giving a presentation before City Council today, citing some very specific issues with ongoing recruitment, including just hiring challenges, quality of applicants often poor, and that agencies strongly believe that public perception of law enforcement limits interest in the profession as a sizable barrier to effective recruitment. So what that is going to mean going forward, something that El Paso Police looking at very specifically. Also, again, had on the mayor of Las Cruces, Ken Miyagishima, talking about his experience over at the U.S. Conference of Mayors and some of the specific things coming out of that might affect Las Cruces and beyond. So thank you again to him for talking to us about that. But getting to more of those calls here, squeezing in what we can. We do have Nate on the east side here with us right now. Nate, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Andrew, and God bless you as always, each and every day. Thank you for all you do. And I just want to speak about the recruitment into our service departments, everything from law enforcement, fire department, EMS, medical staff, military, you name it. I want to let me use this term properly. I want to ask every citizen in this great city of ours, our parents were examples to us how to respect and serve. It shouldn't be, we should have people lined up at the door. They shouldn't have to pay bonuses and everything because it is a privilege to serve. And shame on us as a society when we are making mockery and degrading and we are tearing down and establishing it. Where would we be without police? We wouldn't be running, people wouldn't be running across these borders. People would be running, trying to leave this place because there would be no law and order. So it's our personal responsibility to be good role models and examples in our homes, in our community, in our workplaces, and whatever you're doing. I don't care if it's picking up the garbage. But do it with honor. If that person who lifts that garbage truck, you'll be surprised who some of those folks are. In fact, one of them was featured on the TV program here called Extreme Makeover, a garbage truck driver from El Paso, Texas.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Yes, it was on Extreme Makeover. He was out from the St. Elliott program area. That was several years ago when that program was on board. But to make a long story short, I just tell us that, and I know I'm an advocate for the police department, military, law, you name it from A to Z. And we can make it right by teaching your children, and everybody can't be president of the United States. Someone is going to have to do the hard work. But they can do it right. There's ethics involved here. Teach your children to be honest and go out and be an honest policeman or teacher or priest. We need honorable people in all walks of life, not just government, if you want to put it that way. So I just want to just encourage. It's our personal responsibility to contribute to the cause. Lord, the people should be not knocking down the doors, but I'm saying lined up waiting to talk. Okay, I thank you for these few minutes, Andrew.
No, sure thing. Thank you for the points there. I think there are important ones. I will agree that the ones that we entrust with public safety, and particularly in the enforcement of law, should be held to a high standard. Do not get me wrong there. But then everything else that comes along with it, the derision, these are essential things. And we're just going to be saying out here that, it's going to get away with it. Just do away with it, and we'll do it a whole, and it'll be so utopian is a lot of what the logic ends up coming down for me. If you want to reassess priorities, that's one thing, but it often goes a lot further than that. And I give much credit, particularly to the El Paso Police Department, in doing the work that is needed to. We have been one of the safest cities in the country for a long time. We'll see what the actual stats come out for this past couple of years, but that is a credit to both the people of El Paso and those that we entrust with keeping the peace. So absolutely agree that it should be treated with respect, but I do think that it is ongoing problems, and we'll see what El Paso Police Department decides to do. A comment from Michael Perez saying that the only way to improve the police department is to lower standards and allow candidates with criminal records. That is a controversial statement, but it is one that is being mentioned even within this actual survey. They're being saying that the hiring process challenge noted by the presentation from the El Paso Police Department. Some agencies noted that passing a background check is a huge barrier in hiring individuals, as is meeting all the necessary criteria to be a police officer. So I think that's a larger conversation, frankly, to be had going forward here. Leroy Chuck further adding on, it takes mature adults to raise a person to be a productive person in society. Okay, I don't have kids, so I am not one to throw rocks at when I don't even have a house, glass, or otherwise with this, but it does seem to me that there's been a lot of focus on how kids are raised. What always made the most sense to me, frankly, when I've had, younger cousins or other younger members of my family, is to raise them to be members of society, because anything else just is a disservice to them and a disservice to all of us as well. All right, I think we have time to go to a break now. We got to go to that break. So if you're on the line there, stay there. We will get with you shortly. Otherwise, if you want to call in, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Got to take that bottom of the hour break. Be back after the traffic and weather updates, and back with more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. You are locked into Talk El Paso, so stay tuned. We'll be back shortly. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Justin Creed, your CBS 4 News Update. El Paso ISD has voted to pass a mask requirement for students and staff. It's set up in a way in which they believe it'll work around Governor Greg Abbott's orders restricting mask mandates. In a 4-3 split decision, the board has passed new mask rules in all EPISD schools until February 15th. The new rules come with the option to opt out. So what this means is that individuals who do not opt out are expected to wear masks in schools. To be clear, this is not a mandate. The district technically can't make a mandate due to state regulations. CBS 4 on your site has confirmed that 2 women from El Paso were found murdered in Juarez. The details to some of this story may be disturbing. The 2 women from El Paso were found in plastic bags and dumped in a neighborhood on Sunday. The women are identified as Julieta Ramirez and Naomi Martinez. They had been dismembered. 2 other women were found under similar conditions on Monday. Investigators have not said why the women were killed. With your CBS 4 News Update, I'm Justin Cree.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Got an accident in Viscount Boulevard north of Gateway at Acer Boulevard. Another crash with police responding Zaragoza at Sunfire, and it is slowing traffic both directions on Zaragoza all the way up to almost Tierra Este. Gateway Boulevard westbound all the way from Airway to the downtown area, very slow and go traffic. And I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorn, it's heavy, stop and go. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
After a few mild days, bigger changes are headed our way starting tonight as colder air moves into the area. Tonight, our sky will go mostly cloudy with breezy conditions with a 20% chance for a few showers overnight. Coming up tonight, I'm tracking our next cold front along with the chance for some wintry precipitation. Plus, if this winter-like pattern sticks around for the upcoming weekend. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. If New Year calls for more hiring, check out Indeed, the all-in-one hiring platform that makes it easy to attract, screen, and interview candidates all in one place. Sponsor your first job post today after visiting Indeed.com/credit.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi just made up to $30 million in stock trading on big tech companies like Google. And these are the very same companies she oversees in Congress. After decades in public service, Pelosi has a net worth of up to $250 million. Now, Grant Stinchfield is on Newsmax exposing Pelosi and her hypocrisy. Watch Stinchfield tonight. You'll be shocked by what you find out and how much Congress is making on your dime. Tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern to Stinchfield on Newsmax, America's fastest-growing cable news channel. America trusts Newsmax for the real news you can't find anywhere else. Get Newsmax on every major cable system. If your cable operator doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want it. Or watch Newsmax free on your smart TV, like Samsung, Vizio, or LG. And streaming on Pluto, Xumo, Roku, and more. Millions of Americans just like you are turning off the old media for Newsmax. Watch Stinchfield tonight and find out why.
Are you a safe driver? Are you looking to save money? With DriveWise from Allstate, the safer you drive, the more you can save. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today. This report is sponsored by Allstate.
You can't help but look at a car wreck on the side of the road. Yet we turn a blind eye to the things we should be looking at.
What are we doing? It's not like we didn't know. We know. We are turning our eyes.
The Glenn Beck Program.
I have no tolerance anymore for people who say, I just can't look at it.
Listen and look.
You don't have that option.
Glenn Beck. Mornings at 7.
What can you do? Here's something you can do.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Bunch of ways that you can tune in, so thank you for however you may be doing so, on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or over on the many social apps we're on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Leroy Chuck asking about that news update item, and it relates, going to be a lot relating to our guest coming up tomorrow from talking about child mental health there, but him asking, EPISD is making masks mandatory again for kids. Yes, but no is the technical answer. It'll be opt-out, so you can tell them no, but otherwise, basically, I think it's going to come down to a parent permission form kind of thing, because you can't mandate them. That has not changed in the state of Texas for, has it been? Feels like better part of a year at this point. I don't know. The legal channel, I lost track of them a long time ago, so I am not the expert on that. But, yeah, essentially that's what they're going to be doing in that vote. Comment from Daniel Call that I'll pull up here he made on that situation. There was also a move to then push down the quarantine period to be in line with what the CDC is saying if they're asking for that, but I do not believe that succeeded either, so it's still the 2 weeks, I do believe. But getting to more of those calls on the line, we are taking those throughout the rest of the hour, so that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Tony on the west side here with us right now. Tony, thanks for joining us.
All right, a couple of items. Number one, a little thing I saw on YouTube. If you're afraid to live your life because you might die of the virus, you're probably dead already. That's a little wisdom there. What I want to talk about is, and Chief Allen or whoever the new police chief is, and the cops, listen to me, the law enforcement people, listen up. If you want to fix the public relations situation with police officers, and you want to have more people volunteer, and you want to step up your police agency and so forth, listen up. This is how you do it, okay? First of all, you, the chief, and the mayor have to work together. You have to educate the public. Because if you're going to have a policy that says that police officers are to use necessary force to subdue a suspect, then you can't turn around later, and then when that subject refuses to subdue, and you are trained and obligated by law to use force, as in, i.e., beating the heck out of him with your baton, and then police officer is accused of brutal behavior or what have you, and then you fire or you castigate or you throw in jail or you persecute or you fine the police department because they use somebody. Well, there's a disconnect there. So let me tell you, police chiefs and you public relations people, even if you need to go to the high schools, by the way, you need to teach the public that if your policy is to have police officers have the authority to subdue their suspects with necessary force, because you can't go up to a suspect. Let's say Rodney King, for example. What would have happened with Rodney King? And I know this is not popular, but I'm going to say it anyway, because all of your King, if he had submitted immediately and turned around and put his hands behind his back at the beginning of the whole scenario, none of that would have happened, right? But nobody wants to talk about that because they don't have the guts. So listen up, law officers, police officers, talk to your chief, go to the high schools, get on the radio, get on TV, and train the public that if they don't submit when they're arrested, when they're suspects, and if they refuse to submit to the law, they will, by law, be beat up. And if you can't teach the public that, but instead you have these lawyers show the videos of the officers beating people up without explaining what led to the incident, without explaining that that's what the law requires when a suspect refuses to obey the law, then you're never going to have quality people want to join the force.
Interesting point there. I'm not sure I totally 100% follow you on the Rodney King example here, but I will say in general, frankly, a lot of the legal advice experts I follow, I mean, there's 1,000,001 of them now on social media, but the more competent ones that I like, even the ones that are, say, in favor, one of the more famous ones I can think of at the top of my head is called the Pot Brothers at Law, who have a very particular attitude when it comes to that substance that you might be able to get. But they say, yes, comply, and if you feel anything has happened wrong later on, deal with it in court. So there's clearly a problem going on with the way this is dealt with, not even just in our community, but in this country. And I do think that if, departments are making policies, they do need to stick with them, because one of the better series I watched, not a whole lot, I'll admit, but Blue Bloods, that was, I think it's still on. Again, it shows how disconnected I am from it. The way it gets into the interplay between departments and the rank and file officers on the street, it was one of the more interesting dynamics and when it comes to law enforcement, drama programming that I'd seen lately. And I think it ends up being more true than not that you got to deal with the culture of it and how you're dealing with your officers in it. And if you're not, basically, if it doesn't feel like you're standing by them, well, you're going to end up in partially situations we're seeing here. So thank you for the points in the call there. Do appreciate it here. All right, we're going to try to get to another call here before we end this segment here. We do have Jorge on the line here with us right now. Jorge, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome, Andrew. I wanted to call because I wanted to comment on the president's perspective with respect to our relationship with Mexico, what it is that he thinks that Mexico is our front door. But what I wanted to say was that from the perspective of my mother's property there on Oregon and Third, also I'm actually looking north, I could see the back end of the Industrial Revolution. And when I would turn the other way around, I could see the beginning of progress that was emerging there on the side of where we were with respect to that development that was north of us. And so it seems that I would hope that the president would take the opportunity to, in fact, engage successfully that area which we all enjoy and have characteristics that are unique for us individually, and in fact make an effort to grow it and enhance it so that in fact stands with respect to what his perspective is that it is in fact our front door, whereas from the perspective of the other side, the United States industrially is back for another nation.
Interesting way to put it there, but yeah, I would love to know more about, I mean, besides the rhetoric, again, would love to see the administration in almost any way, shape, or form come here. I mean, I'll take a secretary at this point, making the visit here to talk about, okay, maybe not a secretary because we've had Mayorkas here. That's definitely for sure. So cabinet and higher maybe level official coming here, or at least a couple cabinet officials. Okay, that's the minimum standard I'm going to accept, but I would love for the president, vice president, and include the rest of the retinue come here and let's talk about these issues here because we got going on. It does seem a lot of like, yeah, we're totally doing something about it, but we're not going to actually come there and engage with it, kind of like you said there. So we'll see what happens, but I'm not exactly going to hold my breath about anything new happening within at least the next year of this administration. We'll see. I guess the next perspective that I'm expecting might be coming out of the State of the Union, and I'm going to give a plug for that on the date when the State of the Union airs. We'll be carrying it on air here, and as well going to be having some local analysis about the things that affect us here coming out of it. Probably a lot of border security issues, and the immediate show after that for probably about the next hour or so, depending on when the speech itself actually ends. So that's something coming up as well. So thank you for the point in the call there. Do appreciate it. A lot of talk about that EPISD policy. Leroy Chuck saying in response that, oh, he'll opt out and not abuse his kids by forcing them to wear a mask. Hey, I fully support you making the choice there and that. I think that's what it comes down to, the ability to make the choice of what works for you. Anything starts interfering with that and saying, no, you're not actually allowed to make a choice and figure out what works best for you. I get a little, at the very least, suspicious of, and probably beyond that. Found what Daniel Call posted publicly about it here, saying that the board of trustees voted last night 4-3 to impose a mask mandate with an opt-out provision, the way he's deciding to describe it. But that's saying that he voted against it voted against it, though I respect the decision of the board. Generally don't support rules that cannot be enforced. Rest assured, though, the courts have ruled that school districts cannot force anyone to wear a mask. More importantly, I motion that the quarantine time be reduced for staff and students from 10 days to 5 days for those that test positive for COVID. Even the latest guidance from the CDC recommends this. This motion was unsuccessful at this time, but I will not give up. So again, that'll be something that we'll be talking about related to this, not this exact issue, but when it comes to child mental health and those kind of issues, we're going to be talking about that more with the Child Guidance Center coming up tomorrow on the program, live on the show here. So that has been a difficult one to keep your eye on. We focus mostly on it kind of at the public macro level when it comes to the schools and what they're doing, but the individual circumstances, and I feel like it was talked about a lot more towards the start of the pandemic, mental health issues going on for youth, particularly the way it was talked about was with things like abuse without any of those mandated reporters being involved in these people's and these children's lives as much anymore due to the effective shutdown happening at the time. That was talked about a lot at the start of it, and it's an undercurrent, but it isn't focused on enough, so we're going to delve into that tomorrow coming up here on the show here. We're going to try to get to at least one more call here this segment. Right now, we do have Ben on the east side here with us. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, did you watch the entire news conference today?
No, we were working a lot on some of the things we had going on here, but got the highlights, shall we say.
Okay, I don't think you did. Okay, you have to watch the whole thing if you want to get the full thing, because the highlights is what you're going to get on regular TV and the radio stations and things. You got to listen or read the whole news conference, because if you did, you would be really not feeling very comfortable about the state of the State of the Union and of our position in the world. Also, one of the things that you won't hear on the media that was out and about is one of the statements that Biden made. I thought was very telling and shows how really out of touch he is with the American people. He said, if people had to choose between a hamburger that didn't cost so much and gasoline that doesn't cost so much and education and childcare, well, we could make that choice. It will be very, very difficult, but we can do it. That is what he said. And that, if you listen to the full conference, you'll hear it. The man is And towards the end of the conference, he was speaking like somebody who was very tired, had no command of what he was talking about. I would not want myself to be the president of the United States because I'm a feeble old man. He is a feeble old man, should not be running be the head of the free world. And that is one thing that you really, I encourage everybody to listen to the whole thing, because what you're going to get on the news is going to be little snippets and make it look like he really was on top of things. And if you watch the whole thing, that man is not in control of anything.
Fair enough. Thank you for the points on the call there. I do fully encourage other people to listen and go directly to sources as well. Don't get me wrong. Just on a given day, with the things we're preparing for this show and our local discussions, we're not always able to fully listen to it, but point well taken. Do appreciate the point and the call there. All right, we got to take that last break here. Coming out of the break, we'll squeeze another call or two if you're wanting to. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Otherwise, wrap up the show, talk about what we got coming up for the rest of this week. After this break, you're on News Radio 690, KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Had an accident Viscount Boulevard north of Gateway at Acer Boulevard. Another crash with police responding Zaragoza at Sunfire, and it is slowing traffic both directions on Zaragoza all the way up to almost Tierra Este. Gateway Boulevard westbound all the way from Airway to the downtown area, very slow and go traffic. And I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorn, it's heavy, stop and go. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Jackson Hewitt. Discover thousands of dollars in new tax credits and your biggest refund guaranteed with Jackson Hewitt. Schedule an appointment with one of their tax pros to get a head start on your taxes. Go to jacksonhewitt.com to learn more and find a location near you.
The Mlk Tapes is your next true crime podcast obsession. On April 4th, 1968, a lone gunman assassinated Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Memphis, Tennessee. At least, that's the official story. The Mlk Tapes podcast explores recordings of eyewitness testimonies to reveal the real story of the plot to kill Dr. King.
James Earl Ray was a pawn for the official story.
Listen to the Mlk Tapes wherever you get your podcasts.
Mass Mutual knows that your finances can be an uncomfortable conversation.
Mark, we should really talk about our money.
Yep, we really should.
Like, we never talk about our savings.
No, we never talk about that. Or our assets.
Or our debt.
Yeah, we really should talk about our debt.
We need one of those financial plans.
One of those will make a difference.
We should talk about it.
We really should.
Talk to us about financial wellness today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. Mass Mutual. Live Mutual.
Being a real estate agent isn't about listing houses. It's about connecting to people. I need to find new buyers every day. So I promote my listings using radio commercials from iHeartAdBuilder.com. Now every time I have an open house, it's a full house.
A custom radio ad from iHeartAdBuilder is the fast, affordable way to drive customers to your business. Put the power of radio to work for you. Get started now at iHeartAdBuilder.com.
The El Paso History Show with Jackson Polk and Melissa Sargent is 10 a.m. this Saturday, and the history of the 1877 Salt War in San Rosario, Texas. The El Paso History Show is sponsored by Patrick Tuttle Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant in Canutillo, Mission Del Rey Southwest, Keystone Heritage Park, and by M1EP Management Corporation. Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Now streaming on Facebook and YouTube and on News Radio 690.
Because everyone deserves excellent medical care, El Paso has its own free community medical clinic. RotoCare is a free walk-in clinic located at 301 South Schutz Drive and is devoted to improving the health of all El Pasoans, including those without insurance or legal documentation. RotoCare is open most Saturdays from 9 a.m. to noon. For more information, call 790-0700. RotoCare, because everyone deserves excellent medical care.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Your host, Andrew J. Polk, rounding the bend here towards the end of the program here, but still take a call or two if you're wanting to do so. That number to do, if you call in, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. And don't forget, Friday is around the corner as well, and the end of the week. We're getting a little bit further afield, but keeping the impact here in El Paso, so I'll allow it. But on Friday, we'll take on all of these subjects and beyond, because that's what we do with the Free-for-All Friday. But coming up tomorrow, going to be talking again, Child Guidance Center, about what is going on in the background and the foreground for a whole lot of people, frankly, when it comes to child mental health, these school issues, and all of the intersection of all these issues going on. So we'll delve into that coming up tomorrow, amongst other things, because we still got so much, got more than we can even get to in 2 hours here. There's always something going on and affecting us here in the Borderland. So we'll get to it, but again, at least one last call on the line here for the day. We do have Ed on the east side here with us right now. Ed, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Andrew, I know a lot of people think our president's struggling, maybe so, but I would hate to see if he didn't finish his term on account of his replacement. I don't think nobody would be very happy with his replacement at all. I think old Joe could make it to the end. I hope he does, you know. Lessons are he's trying, you know. But whatever. Anybody wants to think about him, think he's better than his replacement would be. Thank you, Andrew.
Oh, no, sure thing. Thank you very much for the point in the call there. I've heard that mentioned a few times before, and given the discussion that some of y'all have brought up about the vice president today, and then if you continue down the line of secession into the Speaker of the House, I think you can make your own conclusions about your own thoughts on that way. So appreciate the point in the call there. I do thank you very much here. Some of the other topics being looked at here, at least being attention here, I do want to mention some of our top stories. We do have El Paso Police Department talking about issues going on both locally and nationwide when it comes to recruitment. Interesting comment from Michael Perez a little bit earlier, saying that about 75% of America's 17 to 24-year-olds were ineligible for military service due to a lack of education, obesity, or other physical problems or criminal history in 2009, according to a report issued by the Mission Readiness Group. Closest I've gotten to that stat is been involved in reporting, haven't been able to actually go out with the Project Appleseed. If you know what that is, the idea of spreading around marksmanship abilities as a core kind of value of this country as something that being founded upon. So it's a little bit of patriotic education, a little bit of actual shooting ability, and can be certified through it. Never been able to participate because anytime they have it, I'm not saying I'm addicted to working weekends, but I can't seem to stop doing it. So that's my fault, not theirs. But that's something they put forth. That's the readiness, essentially, of a good swath of the American populace when even those that do enter basic training is the firearms abilities is very low. Very, very low. So I think there are a lot of issues that would come to that, and whatever may happen with this Ukraine issue, again, we're getting a little bit far afield from our usual topic point, but it's taking a lot of brain space in my mind. I will perfectly admit and agree to that. If it was really, push kind of shove situation as we see within the continent that we haven't seen in generations, but multiple generations at this point, does lead to certain questions I have. So what it comes down to for me is be involved, find groups that you like that are dealing with these issues, but just do something is what I absolutely have to say. We were texting obesity is the biggest disqualification in the military. It's nuts, and lots of criminals as well. I mean, there's a whole lot of issues that come along with this, but we'll continue breaking it down as we do 4 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, some of those topics we're looking at for the next week, for this week, and then coming up next week, we're going to be getting into more candidates as we get closer to the start of actual early voting and probably then the election itself. Primaries coming up here, so for those of y'all planning to make a plan to go out and vote, go ahead and get that in place, I will absolutely say. So that's going to be about do us here for us today. Leroy Chuck, one parting comment. Obesity will literally take years off your life, and nobody cares that a majority of Americans are overweight. An underrated topic and talking point as we are dealing with a pandemic that deals with all that. I'm trying to deal with that in my personal life anyway, so fully agree with you there. So that'll do it for us today. You've been listening to Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Sincerely, thank everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. Even if you haven't made an active participation, if you go on the social media, give us a like, give us a share, give us a follow, tell a friend, and let's get them involved in the discussion about the things that go on here in the Borderland. So we'll do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, talking with the Child Guidance Center and more of those topics and what is going on there for tomorrow. So tune in for that. Otherwise, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. See you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
The 10 Gateway westbound is slow with 5 to 10 minute delays from the downtown exits way back to Airway, and then again Wrestler to Thorne. I-10 eastbound at Reynolds, watch for a stalled vehicle in the Gore lane. Got a crash Zaragoza at Sunfire that's slowing traffic both directions on Zaragoza. And Montana Avenue at Hawkins, you're crawling with less than 10-mile-an-hour pace there. Kelly Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Has politics gone mad? Don't be a bystander. Get involved. Whether you want to be a volunteer, candidate, or make it your career, we'll give you the tools. Texas Latino Conservatives is a statewide organization committed to getting more Texans involved in shaping the future of our state. Through Leadership Latino, you will learn about the many ways that you can make a difference and maybe start a new career. And it's free. Come hear from respected professionals and rising stars like newly elected State Representative John Lujan and Midland City Councilman Dan Corrales. Visit leadershiplatino.com to sign up and get more information. I'm Orlando Sanchez, Chairman of Texas Latino Conservatives, and I look forward to seeing you on January 29th.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Because you never hear this.
Hey, hon, I'm late. Chris, I am so pleased you missed the beginning of our meeting.
Thanks for making me wait, Dad. I talked to a lot of strangers.
Check on your commute. Stay informed. Traffic and weather all day. Or you might never hear the end of it.
Well, you were late to our anniversary dinner that one time.
Yes, how could I forget?
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public
News
service
on the
announcement
hour
brought to you
and
by
a
the National
half.
Highway
Traffic
Traffic
and weather all
Safety
day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. President Biden is admitting he hasn't been able to go out and talk to Americans as much as he's wanted.
Part of the problem is, as well,